Hey guys, welcome to another inspiring episode of Let's Discuss Cafe, where we dive deep into the minds of leaders shaping the legal landscape today. I'm your host Avinash Tripathi, and today we have a remarkable guest joining us, Animekh Pandey, an accomplished in-house counsel specializing in legal compliance, contract management, and more. With a background in law and a passion for sustainable development, Animekh brings a wealth of experience and insights to our conversation. Let's give him a warm welcome. So, Animekh, welcome to Let's Discuss Cafe. How are you feeling?
This is like the first for me, so a bit nervous, a tad bit nervous, but let's see how it goes.
No worries, no worries. We'll be very kind with you, don't worry. So, congratulations on your new job with the Encardio Rite. Wow. So, the name is really impressive. Tell us what your employer does.
So currently, Encardio Rite is a geotechnology company. It works and it designs solutions regarding to geotechnological tools. So basically, in lay terms, if I explain it, it develops tools for like high-rise buildings for big projects such as dams, big infrastructure creations like for metro lines. They create the safety and tool implementation for such products. Overall, this is one aspect of their business. Second aspect is monitoring these safety features and here comes the software part of the company where basically they have a monitoring facilities for geotechnical monitoring of these high-rise buildings or these mega structures. So this is primarily what they do. So currently what the company is basically is it is almost in, I think so, done business in almost all the continents that exist. So we have, for example, we have entities based in the Middle East. We have entities based in North America, in South America as well. We are trying to expand in South America. We are also keen on expanding in Africa. We have done some projects in Oman and some projects again in Singapore, in Dubai, in KSA. And in Europe also, we have a entity Procure. So basically, this company has its imprints across the globe. It has been involved in a lot of projects from building a good amount of dams in US, in India, to any big infrastructure, for example, the Doha Metro project and all those things. So it is involved across the globe in all of these infrastructure projects. So it is doing pretty good right now. And what we as the legal department do is primarily to incorporate these new entities to see they are compliant with all the laws and legal considerations, to strategize as to how and where to open new entities, to guide them and basically provide support to the expansion of the company right now.
Thanks a lot for that context. So, as a fresh graduate, right, and especially from a national law school, right, so there's a lot of, I would say, myth as well as reality going around as to, what kind of pay package you can get after graduating from a national law school. So, obviously, I don't want to know your exact CTC, but if somebody gets employed in a company like Encardio, right, and, obviously you can take example of your peers as well, what kind of a broad range of CTC are they looking for? Or they should be hoping for?
I would say that this is pretty market standard and it is, I think, so very competitive with almost all across the board with like brands like EY or Deloitte or for say some law firms also. So from that, from a salary perspective, I don't think so that if I compare it with my peers, I am anywhere below the mark. But yeah, it also comes with a lot of securities that, for example, a job at a law firm would not. So, for example, I have contributions towards my PF, I have contributions, social security benefits, and other things that I don't think that exist in law firms because again, a lot of the laws, employment laws, do not actually apply on law. I think so. If we talk about remuneration wise, it is a very lucrative thing to do. Also, I think so at the stage at which I am, or people my age are, or the juncture in their life where they are just coming out of law colleges, I don't think so. Money should be a primary driving force. I think so. The experience and the way in which you get to know, because at the present juncture of my career, I would not say that I am an expert or I have expertise, that thorough expertise of any field of law. But what I have is a potential to grow. And then that potential, I believe so, can only be utilized when I try something new, where I try something where I get a holistic development growth. So, for example, at Encardio, I not only cater to the basic things that a lawyer does, so for example, drafting legal opinions or drafting contracts or drafting legal notices, but I also get to get in touch with the business side of things. And this is at this juncture where in-house practice and litigation changes, is that litigation begins at a juncture where where a business relationship is either about to expire or has deteriorated to an extent that cannot be recovered. But in-house lawyers, they work from the very beginning, where they see that there is a need to preserve the relationship, also to build upon it. So the way in which you negotiate, the tools that you provide your team with, so that they can negotiate a contract, or the insights that you give them when you read a contract, or when you send in a notice, or when they come to you with a legal problem and they ask like, how should we go about it? That at the very beginning juncture, at least, so is something that I'm still learning a lot. So I have like a great privilege to like have a very good mentor at my company, my general manager, Mr. Sarkar, who has actually helped me a lot in navigating all of this, because he has been an in-house counsel for a very long time. He was with HCL before this. After HCL, he has joined with Encardio. So he has a lot of experience, and I get to learn a lot from him in that way. And from whatever small experience that I hold, I have been able to inculcate this, that an in-house job is a job to navigate between this business world and this world of law, and how not to make them diverse, but how to make them converge, and converge in such a systematic manner that all the things happen in a systematic process.
No, I completely agree with your assessment. I just wanted to understand, like, it's very hard for people to have access to the industry standards, right? So as you said that, okay, my CTC is in balance with the industry standards, because you have the luxury of, knowing the peers and what kind of salaries you are getting. But maybe you are not very well versed with what kind of, salaries people from NLSI Bangalore, for instance, are getting, right? Tell us some, like, because you have recently graduated and you have gone through that, placement wala scene. So first of all, how was the placement as NLU Lucknow? What kind of things that you observe? And then you can probably, give us a hint as to a general person who is not from your college, as to what kind of salary people graduating from your law college are, expected to get.
So I would say that, especially for freshers, but just graduating out of law schools, actually depends a lot on the college that you belong from, and it is something that is very unfortunate. It is very unfortunate that a select few law schools get the opportunity to like get the highest amount of salaries, irrespective of the fact of your merit or how that law school has prepared you. But yeah, a lot of it depends on the law school that you come from, or from the background of law that you come from. I would say somebody at a premier law school. So where I say a premier law school, I would say like one of the topmost tier 1 NLUs, like NLS, Nalsar, WB, NUJ, or for the matter, NLU Jodhpur. So with easier access to placements, you get a better range of salary. But again, there's somebody from like NLU Lucknow would land up. I don't think so it would be in the same salary bracket as those people. But again, I think so that is just an initial phase thing, where I've also seen like a lot of my seniors who graduated like last year, before that, they face this issue like just out of college, but after a year or few, this thing dissipates out, because again, then it totally depends upon your caliber, the way in which you can contribute to your team. So all of those things are a good start, I would say. But down the line, everything boils down to how you are as an individual. I would say a lot comes from being associated with the premier law school. But again, in regards to salary or in regards to your skills, if you develop those skills over a period of time, constantly you work upon yourself, I don't think so getting a good amount of salary is a problem. Again, for me personally, I think so that a career should be more than salary, should be more about knowledge, should be more about growing yourself as an individual. This is something that I say because I see a lot of people, not just in the field of law, but everywhere. It is a phrase, I think so. I don't know what it is exactly in Hindi, but it is always said that whenever you search for Lakshmi, you will not get her. But if you go for Saraswati, she might intervene you to go to Lakshmi there. So basically saying, if you build upon your knowledge base, you will get benefits for that. Law is not a career where you will get amazing salaries as soon as you go out of your law school. But if you give it time, if you give yourself if you work upon yourself, definitely it is something that is one of those careers where you can grow rich. That is something that I have seen across, or from what my perception is right now.
Well said. And I completely agree with your assessment that primarily when you're just graduating, look for learning. So you look for service rather than Lakshmi, right? So don't you think that I have actually compromised on that by going to the in-house counsel straight away and not going to the law firm? Because I understand what you're learning is different, but a general tendency is, or a general observation is, that in a law firm, you get to learn a lot more. The work culture is a lot more demanding. And later on, it's better for you to switch to the in-house role if you are really interested in that. Don't you think you haven't done that? And what was your thinking behind choosing this route?
So I would say that, see, throughout my 5 years in my college, I tried to intern at a lot of things. I tried to intern at law firms. I tried to intern with a lot of independent counsels. I also interned with a lot of legal organizations. I also interned with a lot of research-oriented legal organizations. I never interned with an in-house job. That is something that I would say. Now, interning with law firms, I understand that it is very tiring of a job, that it demands a lot. And I believe so that, for example, I also had some of these doubts, like starting the in-house job role. Because a lot of people also told me when I was starting that something of a role that you go 5 years down your line as a lawyer, or 7 years down your line as a lawyer. But when I started with this role, I don't think so that I'm learning lesser in comparison to what I learned during my days as an intern at a law firm or with a litigator. Because again, the role of an in-house counsel is not something that is totally different from that of a lawyer. A legal in-house counsel does the very same job as that of a lawyer. The only thing that changes is that your customer is just one person. The perspective of everything revolves around that one customer, and I believe so that one customer is my company over here. So if you see it as a perspective of like how and what am I learning, I'm really learning a lot more than I think so I learned at, and or I'm given more opportunities to explore. So for example, I'm given more independence to explore legal research when it comes to things. For example, at law firm, a general perception is that this is the problem, and now you need to break down this problem so that you can find a legal solution so that wins the case. In an in-house job, what I found is that you need to identify that problem. You also need to identify the different routes to that solution, because there is never a single route to a decision. So, for example, recently in a case, we were reviewing a contract, and in that contract, there was a stipulation of a dispute resolution clause. Now, there are two ways to tell your team how to solve this. First, tell them, okay, this is the dispute resolution clause, it looks good, you can go, you can proceed with it. The second way is to try to get a better dispute resolution clause out of it. So, focusing more on things like ADR, or focusing more on things that are easier accessible, that are cheaper as an alternative. So how do you find that? You find that by two things. First, you do a research on how alternative dispute resolution clauses are governed in that very region. How are they implemented? Is there an implementation mechanism? Because again, with ADR, the primary problem is implementation. Third, you go about to see whether or not it would be feasible for you as a party, or whether the contract is of such a vast or such a small amount that it might not actually be affordable to like take that route post. So again, all of these things, I don't think so a law firm would allow me at a very beginning stage to evaluate. It definitely allows you when you become a senior associate or when you are moving up the ladder, but this is something that I'm getting to know right now. Now, one of the other things that I do is compliance. And I think so being able to handle compliance has given a new outlook altogether, because compliances are things that are very basic. So we are also manufacturing a lot of in Lucknow itself. So we have to comply with a lot of laws. And while I was able to explore a lot of laws, I was also able to explore the idea of how much difficult it is to do business in India. A lot of laws there are in India that directly state punishments from like imprisonment of directors to hefty fines of lakh rupees. So this is actually enriching my knowledge band down the way. It is also giving me the option to draft a lot. So I'm drafting contracts, I'm drafting legal notices, I'm drafting opinions, legal opinions. And those legal opinions have to be very business centric. So this was one of my habits that I think so that I'm gradually developing into, and a lot in thanks to my general manager, because he was the one who has guided me to like transition out of it. So the research notes that I was preparing for law firms for a majority of the time, when I sent it across to my manager, he was able to understand. But again, he told me how to develop that and how to change that so that it is more suited for business people and how and they understand it in a better way. So these are things that I think so help me. Even for example, if I say as an individual I want to grow up in the field of law, it is actually developing my legal bank, my legal resources. And I don't think so. My options are getting depleted over here. I think so. I'm able to develop a lot of skills that might require in the latest. So I don't think so that there's a restricting factor that I've done. Because I feel yes, I've taken a different approach. That I would say that's for sure. But I think that this approach is helping me a lot.
Well said. And what my 2 cents on this topic would be that starting your position as an associate in a law firm or starting as an in-house counsel, to excel in either of these roles, you require very different set of skill set with, I would say, 30 to 40% of overlap. So either of approach works fine, I will say. But I wanted to understand your point of view as to why you have gone against the traditional wisdom. I was noticing that you have done around 10 to 15 internships, somewhere between that number, right? So is it an outlier or is it a norm these days?
I would say somewhere in the middle. So COVID turned me into an opportunist where a lot of law firms were giving online internships and a lot of law firms are still doing that. So that gave my batch a very unique opportunity to like work across the fields with a plethora of lawyers, a plethora of great legal minds. So I think so that opportunity, something for a batch that came out of COVID, is a general norm. But that might change. And that is something I think so will change because, again, a lot of law firms have transitioned back to working in offices with, again, the interns, with the interns also to come in offices. So, again, we are all aware that the All India Bar Council has set up regulations about attendance and everything. So, we can't skip that. No law school can skip that. So, again, we boil them down to say if somebody from the next year or after that, I don't think so they would be able to get those many internships. But again, yes, I think so the consistency of my internship is largely in fact due to COVID and because of the transitioning to work from home environments. Yeah, I was able to grab that opportunity. And I was able to learn a lot from there because I was able to meet with a lot of good people from good law firms and from great places. So I interned with places in Delhi, Bangalore, Mumbai, Kolkata. And that was a holistic experience in it all. And I was able to work in a variety of law firms. I dealt with a lot of things. So I work with taxation, I work with insurance, I work with dispute attorneys, I work with Gen Corp teams. So that was able to give me a lot of experience across various law firms. So yeah, this is something I think so. I was blessed with in the disguise of COVID. This opportunity came in, so I think so. I was able to utilize it.
Yeah, well said. I couldn't agree more. But given a thought, like imagine a utopian world where you can set the laws. So tell me, like, if you have the all liberty, like you can make laws. Will you say that doing this many internships would lead to better outcomes, or would you say like mandating that 75% of attendance is better, and you get to do minimum like five, somewhere between 7 to 8 internships?
See, I would say I would change this scenario. Definitely, I would change the scenario because I have found it to be really interesting to work with a lot of people in the legal field. And I think so that is something everyone should do. Because I primarily believe law is one of those where you will know better when you practice. If you talk to any litigation lawyer or any lawyer in general, they will just tell you that if you want to excel in law, just do law. Just start practicing. And the moment you start practicing is the moment that you start developing legal skills. I think so. We should have as a community, we should have a larger discussion as to why attendance is such a big criteria. And I'm one of those proponents who says that attendance in a law school should not be given a very big preference. Because again, I understand the point where discipline and routine needs to be followed in a law school's life. And I understand that. And I'm very well aware of that in the lack of discipline, a lot of things boil down to where you will have a lot of. But what primarily I think so we should do is that we should balance. So for example, I might not say that the 75% attendance is something that is very necessary. But again, if we could boil down that to somewhere of 50% criteria, that I think so across the board, even in engineering, and I think so a few other professions also follow the 60% criteria rule. So I think so that could be lowered down a bit if a middle path can be achieved. But again, for me, I think so doing internship, doing law is a good way of exploring law. And it is irrespective of the fact that you want to practice law in the future, you want to become an in-house lawyer, you want to do research in law, anything, I think so, you should know what the industry is doing, what the perception of the industry and how it is handling with laws. So, for example, for a law student, the nearest it comes to being able to do law in real life is either moot courts or these ADR competitions. And now these ADR competitions or these moot courts, they only give you a very brief time in which you can, and there also, again, there are a lot of restrictions in these moot courts where a lot of things that normally take place are not allowed or are restricted for the same purposes that it should be regulated in the proper way. Now, I think so what we should focus on is that legal education needs a lot of industry connect, and we need to produce quality law students that are able to understand these industry guidelines. So drafting, I think so, is one of those things where I find that this is something that you can only learn when you are with a lawyer. You are able to learn how to draft. And I don't think so. Law school, I understand that law schools also teach drafting and that there are a lot of courses and a lot of law schools take up programs and these. But I think so the practical application of how to draft and how to review contracts is something that you can learn only when you are in law, when you are working as an intern. And I think so that is something that is necessary to increase the amount of internship, or at least if, for example, 75% of attendance is to be kept, at least mandate a certain number of internships for each semester. So again, and that is also not very uniform across India. There are a few law colleges that follow the semester and that some other follow the trimester system. So these are also discrepancies that happen across the board. So I think so what we can do is, rather than focusing a lot on attending, we can focus a lot more on internships and on training programs. So, and I think that way it would also incentivize a lot of law firms that do not prioritize internships as such. So they can basically go on to take bigger internship programs. For example, a few of my friends have done management courses where last semesters of their management courses are just 6 months of internship in a company. So something like that can be adopted across the board. And let's say, for example, another professional degree, medical, where you have to do internship for 6 months in a hospital. So after that, only you're given a license. I think things like that should take place in law.
I completely agree. I think the focus shouldn't be on attendance. The focus should be on learning outcomes, right? There's a reason, right? Why are we pursuing a 5-year law degree? So that we can become a lawyer. I would say just evaluate and just judge, for 5 years, have two different set of people and have a control group as well, where, one is mandated 75% of attendance, the other one is mandated 60% of internships, right? So make internship mandatory, right? And then at the end of the 5 years, evaluate which have a better learning outcome. And I think that would be a better approach to decide what approach should be taken towards the legal education. It should not be depending upon my opinion or your opinion. Let the data decide, right? Whatever is better for the legal profession in general, right? We are talking about the employability, right? So tell us about how stressful it is to get a job, right? Because we all know, getting in a national law school is not relatively very easy from getting into a good engineering college, or doing a BBA and then getting into a decent MBA college, right? But the level of stress I see law students having whether I'll get a job is much higher, right? I would bet you 1 lakh rupees to find me an engineering graduate who has done 15 internships. Find me a management graduate who has done even 15 internships, right? Even though the course duration is more or less the same. In your case, it's 5 years. In engineering, it's 4 years. In case of BBA plus MBA, it's 5 years, right? You rarely find that. And law students are so desperate, सीख ले यार, कहीं से तो सीख ले, कोई तो सिखा दे हमें, अब फ्री में काम करने के लिए तैयार है. So tell us about that, right? Especially COVID bhi tha, and then you also, the economy also is also not doing great. So how was the vibe for your batch?
So particularly for my batch, I would say that it was a bit depressing. I would like to put it this way only because, again, a lot of people in my colleges have different preferences when it comes to their career and how they look upon it. So a lot of people, they wanted to pursue litigation. A lot of them wanted to corporate jobs. They wanted to shift. And after going through a 5-year cycle of law, they decided that law was not the best thing for them. So they wanted to shift into management. Some took psychology. Some took different fields that they were interested in. There was also a lot of people who, for example, particularly in my college, wanted to pursue a lot of government jobs. They wanted to pursue PCSJ as an option, which I think so is a very valid reason to work on yourself as well. So I think so for my batch as a whole, there was a lot of peer pressure, if you say, because when we go into 5-year law, 5-year program, the thing is that the environment that we lose behind. So after my class 12, I started my law after using my CLAT exam. I started my so my peers, my standard friends, all of them, they started their MBBS. Some of those who were less fortunate, they started their MBBS courses, which started taking a lot of time again. Some of them who started engineering, some of them did their MBA, BBA, BComs, and went on to do a MBA or started prepping for MBA. So when you see your progression in comparison to a little bit wider world than your law school, you start getting nervous because I had a lot of engineering friends who were placed for me, obviously, because their courses got over in 4 years. They easily got jobs, and they had already been at their job for a year. They had some of them had even switched companies once or twice. So at that juncture, you feel a little nervous. You feel a little left behind because in that, okay, these were people whom I was brought up with. I went for like 10 to 12 years with same school with them. So I should be at that juncture near them. And this something I think so. Law is a little bit different when it comes to the other professions, is where I find that law as a career will not give you a crore worth earning job in the very first year of your life. And I think so that is something that where you will gradually take upon experience. And in those steps and turns, you will grow up into an individual and grow as a career. When it comes to the pressure that comes in your fifth year is, I think so a lot. So we were faced with a double-edged sword where we were also the COVID batch, we were also the batch where the economy was bad. And we were also the batch where like, because in the previous year, a lot of big law firms had hired in bulk. A lot of law firms were also not very ready to take in a lot of new associates. So I think so what became a lot of big problem for us was to be able to find these contacts. So at this juncture, this is where I think so a national law university becomes a little bit of priority because we have at least we had the networks to rely upon. So our alumni were somewhat of a thing that I think so I personally relied on a lot of alumni to like secure internships, secure a lot of opportunities. So this was something that I did. And I would say that finding a job for me was something of the equivalent of using LinkedIn, of using my alumni network, of using groups like WhatsApp groups, Telegram groups, where you want where you are looking for legal jobs and like that. It was a combination of everything. So Encardio happened with a LinkedIn post, where a LinkedIn post was required for a lawyer, for compliance, for litigation, for their general contract management and things like that. So Encardio happened only as a normal daily procedure where I was filling in a LinkedIn post of a job post, giving in all my details and submitting it. It was nothing out of the, it was not something like I reached out to somebody or something like that. It was just a routine LinkedIn search of legal jobs and it happened. So what happened was that after the initial HR interview and everything like that, I got to meet my manager. And it was by chance that both of us belonged to the same national law university. So he is among the first batch of RML to graduate. So we both share the same alumni, but we could not have met at any other juncture apart from this one time because he belongs to the first batch of RML, which I think was batch in 2007, 2008. He graduated when I was, I think, so in my 10th or 12th at that juncture. So he passed out at that point. College, he has been in a lot of time as an in-house counsel, the litigation, and he has done a lot of things after that. So that interview was the first juncture in which we both of us met, and he was impressed by me. And by the way, I portrayed myself in the interview, and finally I landed on that job. So I think so. This is something I would not say that this was something that easy. Easy is not the word that I would describe this to be. I would say that this was an effort of like say a month, because again, the algorithm of LinkedIn works in such a way that if you are asking for one simple thing, it will repetitively show you similar things. So I would think so that this process was a little bit painstaking, but again, for lawyers, you have to become innovative, because again, this is a growing, and this I don't think so will reach also the amount of employment that, for example, other sectors like IT give. This is primarily because the purpose of lawyers is to act in back-end support. We are the primary force in a corporate environment. We are not the primary forces on which, like, for example, on which the revenue would be spent, because we are back-end forces which support the entire operation. So I think so the conservative amount would be spent on the legal department anywhere, in any company. And that creates, I think so, scarcity in the amount of jobs. But again, that also demands that these lawyers that are being employed in the legal department be very that need to be very high quality. So again, this makes job finding, especially in legal in-house setup, very difficult. So mine was purely something that I was doing on a very regular basis. So after my fourth year and starting on my fifth year, I was starting to talk to alumni, to talk to anyone. I worked through LinkedIn, through like other platforms, or let's say all my alumni network, to get like people to explore job opportunities, to ask for people like how to or where to apply to get jobs. So it was a painstaking process, but again, I think so that is something that we as lawyers should not be subjected to do. But again, this is something that this will not change as an industry very times in a very limited time. Or I don't see this changing, but definitely I think so. This process might become a little bit better with like new tools like LinkedIn. I think so. There's also Naukri and some other platforms where you can do this. So I think so. It might become a less hassle-free process. So that is something that I hope so that happens, and I pray that happens very soon, so that people going out after me, it becomes the easier way for them to.
I don't think it's gonna get easier. I'll tell you why. Because the opportunities are equal, right? Obviously, as we say, like, there's no chance that, the number of opportunities you guys had, the next generation or next people graduating after a couple of years will have substantially more than that. So whenever the tool comes in, it is available to everyone, right? See, what I'll tell you is that nobody explains to a law student is that, in the first year, networking is going to be your primary job, right? As a lawyer, that's not something I should be doing, but it's just a matter of reality, right? Networking would lead to the best results in terms of getting your employment. So that is a definite part of your job. And for the fifth year, you would be spending 3 to 4 hours every day doing that. And if anybody is telling you otherwise, probably it was really easy for him to get the job. And that's not the case for the majority of the people, I would say, who are graduating from a law school. So be prepared for that. And I think the second learning that I would like to share on this platform is that nobody tells you how much rejection is okay. Right? Nobody tells you that, right? So, some people, they have applied to 40 different organizations and then they don't get it, right? And they get really rejected by that. What I'll tell you, that's actually the norm. If you are applying to 50 places and you're getting one reply out of it, and that's okay, you're doing well. But I think as a law student, nobody tells us that. And that's why I feel at this level, alumni are the best guide, right? And the third learning I would say is that, one of the things that my senior told to me when I was, going through the same phase, like, I was like, job nahi lag rahi, kya hoga, ghar walo ko kya bolenge, right? And I graduated from a mid-tier law college, right? So things were a little more difficult for me. But one of the things that my senior told to me is that, the tension bhi mat lo. 6 महीने से 1 साल में, like, everybody gets sorted, right? So I'll say you that, like, getting a job in 5 years, if it happens, you work really hard, right? But if it doesn't happen, your chances of getting that in the next 1 year is, like, I would say 70 to 80%, right? That's what I have observed, right? So या तो पहले 1 साल फ्री में काम कर लो internships, जो 5 साल के बाद होगा. So
No, I get that.
right.
Right. Especially for first gen lawyers, I think this is a little bit more difficult. So I am a first gen lawyer, and I can vouch for that.
Same here. Same even I'm a first general lawyer. But I'll tell you what, one of the things that I did that I regret now is that don't settle for a job that you don't want to do just because they are paying you. Right. So I wanted to be a corporate lawyer. Right. So that's why how my whole career was designed, my internship, my publication, everything was designed. But at the nick of the time, I had interned, but I couldn't get a BPO or a job offer from a corporate law firm. So there was this litigation firm in Bangalore and an IP firm in Delhi, which was giving me like proper paying job, right? But because my mom was on medical issues, I chose to come to Delhi and start with an IP firm. In the hindsight, I regret that, right? If I had a younger brother, I would advise him to work for free. Don't get a job. It's okay. It's okay if you don't get a placement job, but don't end up in a field which you don't want. I ended up enjoying IP a lot, but that's besides the point, right? But that's what I'd say. Don't compromise on the field that you are, right? Don't think, okay, this guy is not paying me any salary, so let's go with the other guy. Don't think in that way. So yeah, now coming to your day-to-day job, right?
Yeah.
So tell us, as an in-house lawyer, you must be dealing with compliances, contracts, and recovery. So how do you balance legal risk management with business objectives?
As I said earlier as well, so what we primarily need to do as in-house counsel is two things. First, like what is the legal solution to it? And second is how to cater that to the business side of the operations of our organization. And this is how I think so it becomes a little bit different from a normal legal job, is where you need to be very innovative and you need to not have just one solution, but a multiple amount of solutions in your bag when you go to your business team. Because again, the business team will have different considerations where they need to check in. So where they need to check in who's the client, what kind of a reputation we want to establish with them, how much leverage do we have in that team. And this becomes, I think, so basic operation things when it comes to, let's say, negotiation contract. Coming to compliances, I think so that is something again a very unique thing where which I have taken upon. So primarily what we are currently doing is that we have employed a compliance tool by teams as a comp. So we have employed that to handle a lot of compliances, and the tool is in right now it's very, I would say, in its very starting phase where we have adopted it, and we are still adopting to it a lot. Just in theory, it is an ongoing activity to work on a compliance tool. And it is something of a very unique opportunity that I think so I have gotten. So working on a compliance tool has increased not only my compliance database or my knowledge base as in a general, like something, and this has also helped me to take into consideration a lot of things. For example, we have a manufacturing unit. So what are the compliances that are required for a manufacturing unit? There are a plethora of compliances. There are a plethora of business that need to be taken into consideration, considering these compliances. And to be able to give these business decisions a path, we need to first be able to understand them, be able to implement them in a way that they are not counterproductive. So, for example, there is a lot of problem also with these compliances. I have to highlight this before going to a lot of things. So, a lot of employment laws, a lot of laws that relate to factories, they are redundant at this juncture. So, for example, let's say laws regarding fire safety. They say that you need to have fire buckets and 5 buckets of sand in front of your offices at all times for any building that is above 15. Considering the fact that we have high-rise buildings that go to like 10 floors, 15 floors, those 5 buckets will not do it. And this is at this juncture where like things like the national building codes and the RERA regulations, they come into play. But again, their applicability is again very ambiguous. A lot of these things are very new, are very novel at this time, not being implemented. So how will you ask your business to transition away from, let's say, the bare minimum to the standard that is being developed in the industry? So these are things that we take into consideration when we are applying and when we are guiding our teams for like compliance. So this is something that we need to navigate upon. And I find that businesses are very open to adapt to new things. So for example, they also understand that they need to be compliant because again, not being compliant is very difficult in India. To open an entity in India that does not comply with a lot of laws is a very difficult task to achieve because again, the day a doomsday sword comes on your head, you will not be able to like move away from the repercussions. So a lot of compliances in India have jail terms, have terms saying where the directors and where the corporate league is totally taken off, and where the directors are directly liable for active. So here, I think so a very balanced approach needs to be taken. And I think so compliance in India is a very, very unique activity that we are seeing, because again, a lot of laws are changing as we see. So for example, the core labor codes that are to be implemented very soon, when they come into place, I think so employment laws will have a lot of changes. IT is changing very fast. We have AI laws coming up. We have laws for privacy and things like that. So I think so a lot of this will change compliance as we see in India right now. And I think so I have been blessed with a very good opportunity to work with like modern tools that will actually, I think so, guide us when it comes to like compliances going forward. So I think so compliance is something that for me has been a new opportunity, a new hidden quest that I've found here. So, and this is, I think so, perk that I've been able to find here. So I think so this is something very interesting that I do. Recovery is, I think so, something of a very standard procedure that a lot of litigation lawyers do as well, and that I think so is something that has been primarily given a lot of independence to pursue. Where my focus primarily is to take on recovery, not through contemporary or the standard procedure of litigation, nothing like that, but more in a conciliatory and area specific where negotiation engaged. I think so this is something of a habit that I have taken from my manager only, Mr. Sarkar, because his focus, I think so, when it comes to negotiation, has been primarily to take into considerations of, let us say, things like to take more of a perspective towards ADR, negotiation, communication, basic human communication, and that I think so is very necessary right now. Recovery, in a sense, can go wrong in a plethora of ways, and I think so. Rather than employing a lot of shady fees or something like that, that I think so a general perception is a lot of things can happen over a negotiation environment in a very conciliatory format. And this is something that we have taken as an approach at Encardio.
Well said. I think you're the first person I have met who's that excited about compliance. So ever my startup gets big enough that I have to hire a dedicated person for the compliance, you're the first person I'm going to call. Trust me on that.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
moving on to the the fun round. We are going to play the rapid fire round, just like pura Karan Johar style mein. Are you ready?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Favorite legal book or podcast? Obviously, other than Let's Discuss Cafe.
Oh, okay. So I would go with the book option, less controversial option, I would say. So book would be Letters to a Young Lawyer. I think so that is something anyone who's starting in law should read, because it is not just about the legal profession. It is also a lot about your personal connection, how you should work. Work-life balance is something that I think so lawyers tend to forget. And this is something of a perception that a lot of legal dramas have showed us, that you should not have a real life balance. And I think so that those letters, that the book does a great deal explaining that. So I think so that is something that people should do, especially young lawyers.
Wow, great answer. Now the next question is one legal myth you would like to debunk.
One legal myth. Yeah, that I think so would be that actually would be, I think, in relation to compliance. And it would be that you can get away by not being compliant to any activity under the law. I think that's a very big legal myth in India, that, okay, if something is not inspected for a longer period of time, it is not necessary to do that. I think so that's a big legal myth that has been around in a lot of corporate world. So, yeah.
Wow, don't agree more with me. So the next question is a legal skill that you have honed over the years.
I would say drafting, and I think that is a skill in development. Drafting is not something that you can achieve the best form of. It will always be that you would are developing it more. So I think so. Drafting is something that I would say.
Okay. As this is a rapid fire, you have to give a short answer. One most underappreciated trait of drafting. What would be your answer to that?
The research part.
Well said. I completely agree with you. Like, people saying drafting है तो सीधे सीधे लिखना तो है.
नहीं, कभी नहीं. हमें सीरीज लिखना that's a very bad approach to dropping us.
Yeah, literally, that is actually more important. And these days, yeah, what I tell you, so we had this generation, right, who had to, remember spelling, but we don't have to remember spelling, right? Because we had autocorrect. But to be fair, now you don't even need to know proper grammar, right? Because whatever you write, you can just ask any AI
Grammar,
correct.
exactly. Yeah.
Right. So these days, knowing what to write is the skill. How to write is not no longer a skill anymore, to be honest. Last question. The most memorable legal victory or day in your career so far?
So far would be, I think so. See, it would always be the first time I went to the Lucknow bench of the Allahabad High Court. That is something of a day that changed my life. My first internship there, I was with the legal team there, and it changed my life. That I want to do law was the day, was that day. And I think so. Nothing so far has come to replace that. So I would say that.
What are you saying? The opportunity to keep your compliances in check of your company. That must be more rewarding than arguing.
No, that is very important. That is very important.
Animekh, thanks a lot for joining us on Let's Discuss Cafe, sharing your story, your insights, your victories, and and the hardships that you have faced so far. I'm sure it's going to be quite inspirational, especially for people who are about to graduate from law school.
I hope so that I actually love discussing. Like, this is something that I'm thinking about law school. I'm not able to get a lot of people who I can talk about law or my legal journey as a lawyer. So this is something of a very refreshing moment for me.
I'm happy to hear that. And I wish, other people also come out and share their side of stories, because there's so many things, right, which we can learn from your journey and, implement it to make sure that, we our life is not as hard as our predecessors. So,
Right.
Animekh, thanks a lot, yeah. Have a good day.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
And that concludes our conversation with Animekh Pandey. Thank you to Animekh for sharing your valuable insights and experiences with us today. Remember, listeners, you can connect with Animekh Pandey on LinkedIn to continue the conversation and learn more about his work. Stay tuned to Let's Discuss Cafe for more episodes where we bring you thought-provoking discussions on law, innovation, and the future of legal profession. Until next time, this is Avinash Tripathi signing off. See you in the next episode of Let's Discuss Cafe.